What does democracy do? Or what outcomes can we reasonably expect of democracy? All fulfill these expectations in real life? We begin by thinking about how to assess the outcomes of democracy. After some clarity on how to think on this subject, we proceed to look at the expected and actual outcomes of democracy in various aspects, that is, quality of government, economic well being, inequality, social differences and conflict, and finally, freedom and dignity. Our final verdict, positive but qualified, leads us to think about the challenges to democracy in the next and the final chapter. So, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we are going to cover the features of democracy, why do we need to think about the outcomes of democracy, which things we need to understand, the outcomes of the democracy, and the outcomes in various aspects, that is accountable and responsive and legitimate government, economic growth and development, economic outcomes of democracy, reduction of inequality and poverty, that's again economic outcomes, accommodation of social diversity, dignity and freedom of the citizen, that is social outcomes. We're going to study these outcomes. Do you remember how students in Madam Lingdo's class argued about democracy? This was in chapter 2 of class 9 textbook. It emerged from that conversation that democracy is a better form of government when compared with dictatorship or any other alternative. We felt that democracy was much better because it promotes equality among citizens. It enhances the dignity of the individual, improves the quality of decision making, it provides a method to resolve conflicts, and lastly, it allows rooms to correct mistakes. Are these expectations realized under democracies? When we talk to people around us, most of them support democracy against other alternatives such as rule by a monarch or military or religious leaders. But so many of them would be satisfied with the democracy in practice. So we face a dilemma. Democracy is seen to be good in principle, but felt to be not so good in its practice. The dilemma invites us to think hard about the outcomes of democracy. Do we prefer democracy only for moral reasons, or are there some prudential reasons to support democracy too? Over 100 countries of the world today claim and practice some kind of democratic politics. They have formal institutions, they hold elections, they have parties, and they guarantee rights of citizens. While these features are very common to most of them, these democracies are much different from each other in terms of social situations, economic achievements, and culture. Clearly, what may be achieved or not achieved under each of these democracies will be very different. But is there something that we can expect from every democracy just because it is democracy? Our interest in and fascination for democracy often pushes us into taking a position that democracy can address all socio-economic and political problems. If some of our expectations are not met, we start blaming the idea of democracy, or we start doubting if we are living in a democracy. The first step towards thinking carefully about the outcomes of democracy is to recognize that democracy is just a form of government. It can only create conditions for achieving something. The citizens have to take advantage of those conditions and achieve those goals. Let us examine some of the things we can reasonably expect from democracy and examine the record of democracy. Now, democracy merits people are their own masters, equal and exact justice, government not by force, fewer conflicts. Demerits its slow and inefficient government, unstable government, role of money in a democracy, incompetence. In a dictatorship, merits are quick and decisive decision, efficiency, national unity and stability. Demerits are wrong decision taken by the dictator, violence at home, suppression of civil liberties. By knowing democracy and dictatorship, we will come to an understanding that which is much more useful. Now, why do we need to think about the outcomes of the democracy? This I already have explained, that a lot of them practice democratic politics. However, they are different in nature. So we face a dilemma that whether democracy is seen good in principle, but however not good in practice. Which things we need to understand before the evaluation of the outcomes of democracy? The first step towards is recognizing the democracy as just a form of government, and citizens taking the advantage of those conditions which are created for democracy and achieve their respective goals. Now, which are the major areas used to analyze the outcomes of democracy? These 5. First one is accountable, responsive and legitimate government. The second one is economic growth and development, reduction of inequality and poverty, accommodation of the social diversity, dignity and the freedom of the individual or citizens is the 5th one. We'll begin with the first one. How does democracy produces an accountable, responsive and legitimate government? The most outcome of democracy should be that it produces a government that is accountable to the citizen and responsive to their needs. Look at the word accountable and responsive. In democracy, people have the right to choose their representatives who would form the government. Yeah, that is what democracy is. People also have control over their representatives as they are answerable to the citizens. Responsive, right? They participate in the decision-making process either directly or indirectly through their elected representatives. You will agree with this point. That is why the citizens, they have the right to know what follows. This ensures that the working of the government is transparent. If people question the government, the opposition parties can also question and criticize the government policies. They keep a check on the ruling party and make sure that it does not misuse the power. These measures ensure that the government formed is accountable, that is to the people, and responsive to the needs of the people. A democratic government is a legitimate government. Why? Because it's a government of the people. All the voters can choose their representatives. The winning political party forms the government. But in the non-democratic country, the people have no choice. They need to accept the rule of a person or a party. This makes democracy better as it gives people the option to choose their representatives. Thus, it is a legitimate government. What is the meaning of transparency of a political party? The citizens have the right to examine the process of decision making. This is called transparency. Now, there is a question. If you want to measure the democracies on the basis of this outcome, you would look for some of the practices and institutions. For example, regular, free and fair elections, open public debate on major policies and legislation, citizens' right to information, or else called as the RTI. The actual performance of democracies shows a mixed record on this. Democracies have had greater success in setting up regular and free elections and setting up conditions for open public debate, but most of the democracies fall short of elections that provide a fair chance to everyone and in subjecting every decision to public debate. Now, how to check the transparency? I told you that is the first one is free and fair election, right? The second one is the public debate where you engage, either criticize or praise the government. The third one is RTI, the Right to Information Act, are the tools to check the transparency of the government. In substantive terms, it may be reasonable to expect from democracy a government that is attentive to the needs of the people and largely free of corruption. That's what we expect the government to be. The record of democracies is not impressive on these two counts. Democracies often frustrate the needs of the people and often ignore the demands of a majority of its population, and the routine tales of corruption are enough to convince us that democracy is not free of this evil. At the same time, there is nothing to show that non-democracies are less corrupt. You cannot say that just because democracy is slow and corrupt, non-democracies are not. Non-democracies are also corrupt. There is one respect in which democratic government is certainly better than its alternative democratic government, that is legitimate government. It may be slow, less efficient, but not always very responsive or clean. But a democratic government is people's own government. That is why there is an overwhelming support for the idea of democracy. If it does not follow any other outcomes, but it follows a legitimate outcome, right? So now democracy is preferred over dictatorship everywhere except Pakistan. In your map, you can see very few doubt the suitability of democracy for their home country. How suitable is democracy for your country? A lot of people say very suitable. Very few people say not suitable. Democracy is preferable. Sometimes dictatorship is better. Doesn't matter to me. You see a graph or in page number 92. The second one is economic growth and development in democratic form of government. Now, if democracies are expected to produce good governments, then is it not fair to expect that they would also produce development? Evidence shows that in practice, many democracies did not fulfill this expectation. If you consider all democracies and all dictatorship for the 50 years, like 1950 to 2000, to compare with democracy, dictatorship have slightly higher rate of economic growth. But because of this reason, we can't judge democracy, because the economic development depends on several factors like population, global situation, cooperation from other countries, economic priorities adopted by the country. However, we can't say that the democracy is a guarantee of economic development, but we can expect democracy not to lag behind dictatorship in this respect. When we find such significant differences in the rate of economic growth between countries under dictatorship and democracy, it is better to prefer democracy as it has several other positive outcomes. Now, there is a cartoon in page number 93. I'll go to that cartoon in the last slide, but you can pause the video and go to the cartoon straight away. The cartoon on that page will tell you about the disparities between the rich and the poor. Should the gains of economic growth be eventually evenly distributed? How can the poor get the voice for a better share in the nation? What can the poor countries do to receive a greater share in the world's wealth? Now, this is obviously a comparison. Table 1, you can see here, shows that on an average dictatorial regimes have had a slightly better record of economic growth. But when we compare the record only in poor countries, there is virtually no difference. Right? Look at the growth rate. Here it is negligible difference. Here it is, you will find a difference. Now, table 2, now you are seeing here, shows that within democracies, there can be very high degree of inequality. In democratic countries like South Africa and Brazil, the top 20% of the people take away more than 60% of the national income, leaving less than 3% for the bottom 20% of the population. Countries like Denmark and Hungary are much better in this. You can see now comes the next one, that is reduction of inequality and poverty. So this should be inequality, reduction of inequality and poverty. Perhaps more than development, it is reasonable to expect democracies to reduce economic disparities, right? Democracies are based on political equality. All individuals have equal weight in electing representatives. Remember, one person, one vote, one value. But in the economic sphere, growing economic inequalities are a very normal thing. A small number of ultra-rich enjoy highly disproportionate share of wealth and income. As a result, the national income of the country is increasing, but the bottom of the society, their incomes are declining because they find difficult to meet their basic needs like food, clothing, shelter, education, and health. In actual life, democracy do not appear to be very successful in reducing economic inequalities. Remember, in class 9th economics textbook, you have already studied about poverty in India. The poor constitute a large proportion of our voters, and no party will like to lose their votes. Yet, democratically elected governments do not appear to be as keen to address the question of poverty as you would expect them to. The situation is much worse in some other countries. In Bangladesh, more than half of its population lives in poverty. People in several poor countries are now dependent on the rich countries even for food supplies. Right, this one. I explained this one, and there is a very nice cartoon. I'll explain that cartoon also, where they are eating pizza. 50% of the people are eating one part of the pizza, whereas other wealth is being eaten by 2% of the rich. The ultra rich enjoy disproportionate share of wealth. Accommodation of social diversity, that's the fourth one. Now, democracies lead to peaceful and harmonious life among citizens? It will be a fair expectation that democracy should produce a harmonious social life, because democracies usually develop a procedure to conduct their competition. It would reduce the possibility of tension. We have seen in earlier chapters how democracies accommodate various social divisions in power sharing, right? No society can fully and permanently solve or resolve conflicts. So democracy is the most suitable form to produce this outcome. Non-democratic regimes often turn blind eye to usually develop a procedure to conduct their competition. It would reduce the possibility of tensions. No society can fully and permanently resolve conflicts among social groups. Democracy is the most suitable form of government for to produce this outcome. Normally, non-democratic regimes often turn blind eye. They do not resolve their internal social differences compared to the ability that a democratic regime has got. Now, but in the case of Sri Lanka, reminds us that a democracy must fulfill two conditions in order to achieve this outcome. First one, it is necessary to understand that a democracy is not simply ruled by majority opinion. It is the majority always needs to work with minority so that the government can function to represent the general view. Majority and minority opinions are not permanent. The second one is also necessary that the rule by majority does not become the rule by majority community in terms of religion or race or linguistic group. It should become like in every decision or case of every election, different persons and groups may and can form majority. So we are not looking into a single religion or race. Democracy remains democracy only as long as every citizen has a chance of being majority at some point of time. If someone is barred in majority on the basis of birth, then the democratic rule ceases to be accommodative for that person or group. Next is dignity and freedom of citizen. That is the last outcome. Democracy stands much superior to any other form of government in promoting dignity and freedom of the individual. Every individual wants to receive respect from fellow beings. Often conflicts arise among individuals because some feel that they are not treated with due respect. The passion for respect and freedom are the basis of democracy. Now, every society is diverse in terms of religion, language, culture, and caste, but it is only the democracy that is you get equal treatment. There should not be any discrimination on the basis of caste, gender, race, religion, and region. Democracy accommodates all the social diversity by guaranteeing them the dignity and the freedom of individual or the citizens. Now, democracies throughout the world have recognized this. At least in principle, this has been achieved in various degrees in various democracies. For societies which have been built long on the basis of subordination and domination, it's not a simple matter to recognize that all individuals are equal. Take the case of dignity of women. They were denied equal rights, justice, dignity, and freedom, but democracy has ensured all these to women. Now, the principle of individual freedom and dignity has a legal as well as moral force. Most societies across the world are historically male dominated societies. Long struggles by women have created some sensitivity today. The respect to and equal treatment of women are necessary ingredients of a democratic society, right? That does not mean that women are actually always treated with respect, but once the principle is recognized, it becomes easier for women to wage a struggle against what is now acceptable legally and morally. In a democratic setup, this unacceptability would not would not have legal bias basis, because the principle of individual freedom and dignity would not have the legal and moral force there. The same is true of caste inequalities. Democracy in India has strengthened the claims of the disadvantaged and discriminated caste for equal status and equal opportunity. There are instances still of caste based inequality and atrocities, but these lack a moral and legal foundation. Perhaps it is the recognition that makes ordinary citizens value their democratic rights. In the case of weaker section of the society like SC, ST, OBC, special provisions have been made for the upliftment so that they can live with dignity, honor, and lead a free life. They are now allowed to vote and choose their representative in the government. No particular religion or language is given any special preference as India is secular. In the case of conflicts among various groups are minimized by giving all of them adequate representation in the government. It is also ensured that the rule of majority is not by those who are in majority just in number, but it is with the opinion also. The majority group needs to work in harmony with the minority to rest and that interest and concern of every group are represented in the government. Now, before we go to the picture-based questions, now I'll just conclude the points here. Expectations from democracy also function as the criteria for judging any democratic country. What is most distinctive about democracy is that its examination never gets over. As democracy passes one test, it produces another test. As people get some benefits of democracy, they ask for more and want to make democracy even better. That is why when we ask people about the way democracy functions, they will always come up with more expectation and many complaints. The fact that people are complaining itself is a testimony to the success of democracy. It shows that the people have developed awareness and the ability to expect and look critically at power holders and high and the mighty. A public expression of dissatisfaction with democracy shows the success of the democratic project. It transforms people from the status of a subject to the citizen. Most individuals today believe that their vote makes a difference to the way the government is run and to their own self-interest. Isn't that itself is the success of democracy? Now we will move on to the picture-based questions here. Now this question, obviously you will see the first cartoon where the government is looking at it, right? Can you think of what and how the government knows about you and your family? For example, ration cards and voter identity cards. What are the sources of information for you about the government? This is the one. The second one you see here is obviously about the rich and the poor. Should the economic growth be evenly distributed? How can the poor get a voice for a better share in the nation? What can the poor countries do to receive a greater share in the world's wealth? See him. right? The richer, the middle, and the poor. By looking at the cartoon only, you'll understand. Next comes the economic outcome. Look at that picture, the cartoon. Now you'll see the cartoon there, and you will see, my goodness, little fella, how far did you fall down? You tell me. Housing, no healthcare, no schooling, no hunger. Hunger, not no hunger, it is hunger. Now look at the next one, that is world's wealth owned by a few. Now in this cartoon you will see that these rich people, 2% eating almost 95, and the 50%, the rest eating just 5%, right? It shows that wealth is unevenly distributed. Next comes the Rosa Parks. The cartoon illustrates a point made in dignity and freedom of the citizens, that is dignity of women. You remember the lady, hey lady, that's my seat, and she gives him back. Next comes, you see here, it's enemies greeting. Now this cartoon, you have seen it. Well, you saw accommodation of social diversity. The two images depict two different kinds of effects of democratic politics can have on social division. Take one example for each image, write a paragraph each about the outcome of democratic politics. Now here is in a country they're fighting with each other, and there is another way where even though you are different from ideology, but still manage to shake hands and accommodate the diversity. Now that brings to the end of the chapter. The chapter will have a 3-mark question for sure. There is going to be only one 3-mark question. That's why the whole chapter was finished in a single day. More details will be followed up later. If you have any questions, you can comment down in the comment box, or else you can keep your questions for the explanation in the webinar. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.